All right, guys, so now we should be talking about how to interpret different values of elasticities. I've already discussed this a bit because I've already discussed whether something is unitary, inelastic, or elastic, whereby if the elasticity of something is closer to 0 than above 1, as it were. If it's a fraction, let's say, because obviously it could be negative, so then we'd want it to be closer to 0. We'd want it to be less negative. Anyway, don't worry about that too much. So if it's basically a small elasticity, then it's inelastic because it's not affecting the quantity very much. If it's a big elasticity, so it's very positive or it's very negative, then hey, quantity is changing a lot, whether it's going down a lot or going up a lot, it's changing a lot, so it's elastic. And if there's an equal change, then, pardon me, an equal percentage change, the elasticity is going to be 1, so we say that's unitary. But what do we mean? What would be perfectly elastic? So perfectly elastic, let's take the example of price elasticity of demand. Perfect elasticity is if the smallest change in price causes a complete change in quantity. So it would be a completely vertical. It would be a completely horizontal because it's a complete change in quantity if it's perfectly elastic. So the smallest change in price will completely change along the x-axis, completely change the quantity. So this is perfect elasticity. It's right here, horizontal line, because it's saying the literally infinitesimal change in price will completely change the quantity. Now, there's also the opposite, which is perfectly inelastic. So there's no change in quantity. So the perfectly inelastic is going to be looking like this, the vertical. Because no matter how much my price changes up and down, my quantity is the same. So that's our perfectly inelastic curve. So now, in reality, are there any goods or products that are perfectly elastic or perfectly inelastic? Depends who you speak to, but I would say no. I think that typically something always has some slight elasticity in it. And some level of price sensitivity, we would say. So even the very elastic one, I still think there's going to be some change with price with pretty much everything. But yeah, something that's extremely price sensitive might be something that you're kind of on the fence about buying or not. So a very slight change in price will make the difference. I remember I was in Wales on holiday with somebody and they were completely undecided between 2 pizzas, didn't care, we were buying pizzas on the promenade, and they just went, oh, this one's 50 pence cheaper. Okay, that's my choice, right? So it's like literally there are 2 substitute that just went for one based on it being very slightly cheaper. It was still not really perfectly elastic. There was still some sensitivity there, but it's a nice kind of like theoretical idea that you would get something perfectly elastic, or that you would get something perfectly inelastic. Hey, I really want stationery for school. I'm going to get 1 pen that I need for my school, regardless of how expensive or how cheap it is. Perfectly inelastic might be an example. Obviously, in reality, if they're dirt cheap, you're going to buy a bundle, right? So there's still going to be some price sensitivity. But anyway, this is thinking about in terms of perfect inelasticity or elasticity, as well as a sort of recap on what would it mean to be unitary, what would it mean to be elastic, and what would it mean to be inelastic. So you do need to know these